Why building an ethical framework is essential to liberty. A special thanks to Yao for supporting my work. Check out their Win at the Door program where you can get paid to do outreach at yaliberty.org/FA. And thanks to brainchildengineering.com, where you can build and launch your invention. Building an ethical framework is essential to liberty because sustaining liberty requires principled self-reflection to maintain ethical actions. What you think and the limits you impose on yourself in respect of other people's bodies and property is going to determine how you act toward others. If you develop reasons why you refrain from initiating force against others, it becomes easier to manage your behavior when faced with difficult choices or emotionally tumultuous situations. While ethics are not self-executing in themselves, as in you won't be immediately punished for bad behavior to vindicate the ethical ideals, the development and adoption of ethical principles can still act as a resourceful guide for fostering a culture of peace and prosperity through property rights. For a comparative where one does not develop an ethical framework, consider the worldview of the self-described egoist. Egoists believe that developing an ethical framework is unworthy because ethics and morals are just spooks or fictions of the mind, and only self-interest and consequences matter. Now, let's see how not developing ethical frameworks can be problematic in an example. Imagine that a homeless man is sitting on a bench adjoining a sidewalk. While resting, an elderly but able rich man walks by on a stroll and looks down at the homeless man with disgust, puckering his lips in a mock spitting motion at the homeless man. The homeless man annoyedly looks back at the rich man as the rich man carries on to grab a drink at a downtown bar. Later that night, the rich man returns home after a few cocktails. The homeless man takes notice of the rich man's path and follows, peering at the rich man's home from a distance with envy. The rich man is retired, single, and has no other living family. The homeless man is so situated because he came from a poor family that struggled with meth addiction. Even though the now homeless man had prior managed to find gainful employment, a recent economic downturn left him unable to pay his bills at his rented studio apartment, and he was subsequently evicted. The homeless man, feeling desperation set in, breaks into the rich man's house, murders him via smothering, steals jewelry and cash, and makes a clean getaway. To the egoist, the homeless man has acted in self-interest and, because there were no direct consequences, the homeless man is fine just acting in accordance with his base impulse desires. Now, you listening may have some concern about this outcome. Even though the rich man was nearing his end of days and had no other living relatives, the fact that he was murdered outright, despite not actually violating the body or property of another, causes a pause for concern, as, in empathetic thinking, you might wish this not happened to you if someone else thinks they can get away with the same. Even though the rich man was of unseemly personality, it would seem wrong to most that he was murdered and stolen from, as these acts are an initiation of force against someone who had not otherwise caused physical harm to the body or property of another. It is at this juncture that we can see why developing ethical codes of conduct can have an important guidance that transcends acting on one's impulses. If the homeless man had held the virtue in his mind that it was unethical to steal and murder, even if the potential victim was a curmudgeon, then the homeless man would not have committed the act of murder out of respect of his values. This thinking also applies vice versa to the rich man. If the rich man had held the belief that stealing and murdering are unethical, then the rich man refrains from those means to achieve his own self-benefits. This example shows precisely why ethical framework development is important beyond self-interest in consequences. While consequences may help deter those who question what they can get away with, ethical principles rooted deeply in the psyche can help guide people and curtail their impulses to do physical harm to others in pursuit of their aims. And when it comes to promoting a freer future, advocating for and adopting a respect of individual autonomy through self-ownership and physical property rights helps guide people to resist temptations to initiate force in benefit of themselves. While there will always be those who wish to do harm to others, when we work toward creating a culture that adopts a libertarian voluntarist ethical framework, we can move toward a greater respect of each other and our property rights at large. Thank you for watching and supporting my work, and a special thank you to all of my producers: Agorist Nexus, BrainchildEngineering.com, IronAgeArchive.com, Crawford K. McDonald of BCM Real Estate, Zach Lukowski, Young Americans for Liberty, and Beto Destrafa. Help me produce more quality content and receive special perks for your monthly support by joining my Patreon, Subscribestar, or Float pages. Check out my latest events at thouevents.com and grab some great merch at treesofliberty.org. See you soon!